Sega Genesis Classics. Now, first off, I want to say sorry about the background noise in this one. I had a water break in my house. There's currently a humidifier like maybe 20 feet away from me, and I have no way of turning it off. But I wanted to get this review out, so sorry about the background noise. Now, I was never a Sega Genesis fan. Sure, I had one growing up, but I also had a Super Nintendo, and the difference between them were actually night and day to me. The Super Nintendo always had the better games and the better sound. Most of the games I played for the Genesis always seemed average, with the exception of Sonic the Hedgehog, of course. So I was interested to see how this collection of Genesis games were going to be. And I was pleasantly surprised. There are a lot of games in here. It says there's over 50 of them in here, and I believe it. Sure, they weren't all great or even good, but they did show the different kinds of games the Genesis had to offer. Now, I'm not going to go over them all because that would just be pretty boring. I'm going to talk about them generally, and maybe go into my experiences with them. Like, for example, Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle. This is one of the two games that came with my Genesis. The other one was the god-awful game Altered Beast. Don't ever play that. It's a dull, repetitive piece of history. The sound is awful, the controls suck, and okay, that's all I'm saying about that game. Now, Alex Kidd, on the other hand, was interesting. It was a platformer with stiff but workable controls. I remember playing this as a kid and getting really angry at that paper, rock, scissor minigame. Who thought this was a good idea? If this wasn't here, this could have been a fun game that people might have enjoyed. Unfortunately, it ruined what could have been a great title. However, this collection has a secret. You can rewind time anytime you want. You can also quick save and do loads anytime you want. It's too bad you only get one save file per game, but it's better than nothing. If you mess up the rock, paper, scissor game, just rewind time and pick the right answer. I loved the HUD you had to pick games from. You saw the cartridges go into the Genesis and it felt like you were really playing it. So good job on that one, guys. Now let me just say, a few of these games I've just never played before, and I really enjoyed them. Comic Zone was amazing. It was colorful and quite fun to play. It was an interesting concept to have multiple paths to go through and a comic book style where you have to go from panel to panel. But then there are just some awful games in this. But for the most part, most of them were just good or average. There were surprisingly quite a few RPGs in here. I only briefly looked at those. To spend the hours and hours to do a proper evaluation of them would have been way too difficult. And honestly, I'm in the middle of Tales of Vesperia right now. I know you guys hate it when I do partial reviews of like RPGs, so I didn't even attempt it. But don't worry, that review's coming. I don't particularly like the style of turn-based combat it had. It was a lot like Earthbound, which you guys all know my feelings on. Plus, all the games were emulated really well. I didn't have any issues with slowdowns or the music dropping out. Sega Genesis Classics was just overwhelming. I couldn't believe the amount of games this had to offer. There's just something for everybody. If you're a fan of classic games, there's just every genre here for you to find. You may even find a lost classic you might have never known about, like Beyond Oasis, which was a very colorful, fun Zelda clone to play. This one is an easy recommendation. The user interface was top-notch. The games in here, while not great, were at least worth a play once. If you ever thought of yourself as a Sega fanboy, or just curious on what the best games the Genesis had to offer, you're not going to do much better than this.